We are now going to learn the answer of Rava. Let's review. The Gemara asked a question on Shmuel from our Mishnah. The question was based on our assertion that our Mishnah must be referring to day 2, to Yom Tov Sheni, and still our Mishnah says Lulav HaGozel is pasul. Now, of course, this is a question on Shmuel, who holds that on Yom Tov Sheni, a Lulav HaGozel is mutter. So Rava answers and says as follows. But before that, let's note that actually the Gemara uses the words Rava Omar, and in the Hagos B'tziyunim it amends it, it changes it to Omar Rava. Now this is a small difference, but yet it's a difference in understanding, or at least in how it teaches us how or what we can see from the way the words are expressed, that when the Gemara uses Rava Omar, it means Rava is arguing. Generally, that's the way it's understood. If it says Rava or anybody, and then the word Omar, it means he's coming in argument to something that was said before. Whereas if it just says Omar Rava or Omar and any other author, he's not coming to argue, he's coming to explain or to just say something. So in our Gemara, it would make more sense for it to be Omar Rava because he's answering a question, he's not arguing. So, back to the answer. Rava says, our Mishnah is not talking about Yom Tov Sheni, it is in fact discussing Yom Tov Rishon. So now there's no question on Shmuel because the Mishnah is referring to Yom Tov Rishon when it says that a stolen lulav is pasul, and it does not make any mention of Yom Tov Sheni about the second day. So Shmuel is okay to say that Yom Tov Sheni you can use a stolen lulav. Now, but what about the fact that it doesn't say a borrowed one, and we implied from that that a borrowed lulav would be kosher, which that means our Mishnah can only be talking about Yom Tov Sheni. So Rava says no. The reason why he doesn't say shol, a borrowed lulav, is not because it's kosher, rather it's because it's obvious. It had to say gozel for the reasons we're about to explain. And once a gozel, a stolen one, is pasul, for sure a borrowed one is pasul. So Gozel is the bigger chiddush. Why? Because had it not said Gozel, if the Mishnah only would have said a borrowed one, I would have thought that a Gozel is permitted. Why? Because we would have thought the person who is being robbed would have been meyayish, would have given up ownership immediately. Because there's this person with a gun in front of their face, and they gave up the item knowingly. So we would assume if they couldn't do anything at that time when the Ganev or the Gazlan was standing right there, then they were certainly meyayish. So you might think, well, there's no problem. It belongs to you. It's lachem. It's yours. So comes the Mishnah to teach us that this is not so. That perhaps the only reason why the person gave it up or the person's not meyayish, as Rashi explains, because maybe the next day, he knows who the Gazlan was because he saw his face, and perhaps the next day he'll come back with the police or someone else to retrieve the stolen item. So we cannot just assume that there is yush unless we hear so clearly, and that's why a gozel is forbidden. And that's why our Mishnah had to say that. So again, to summarize, our Mishnah is not talking about Yom Tov Sheni, it is talking about Yom Tov Rishon, and therefore the fact that our Mishnah says a stolen lulav is pasul has no bearing, is not any question on Shmuel.